Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault Jersey. Joe Archino back here, and all that anyone can talk about right now is obviously the DeMarcus Cousins deal, where he is now a member of the New Orleans Pelicans. And I'm sure everyone has heard, but just in case you haven't, DeMarcus Cousins has been traded to New Orleans for 3 players and a future first and second round pick. And I think more than anything, obviously right off the bat, the first question, which really isn't even a question, is who got the better end of the deal, the Kings or the Pelicans? And I think undoubtedly everyone is in resounding agreement on that one, and it is of course the Pelicans, but it's an interesting dynamic now. I mean, I don't think we really need to break down it from the Kings side that much. I mean, they got Buddy Hield, they got Langston Galloway, they obviously got back Tyreke Evans, all good players in their own right and can play, but certainly not going to change anything of what the Kings are doing right now. And I think the question automatically now that jumps to all people is, what does this do to the Pelicans the rest of the season? They certainly aren't in a very comfortable position. They're in 11th place in the Western Conference. They're 23-34, and they have 25 games left. And obviously, I don't think anyone expects them to get into the playoff push this season, because the Pelicans are a very bare team right now. Outside of now Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins and Drew Holiday, there's not a whole lot there. There's a lot of bare space on this team right now, and certainly you've got Denver in 8th, Oklahoma City in 7th, Memphis in 6th, and even before that you have teams like Portland right there, and obviously Sacramento is one of the other ones, but certainly with the Damian Lillard and some of the other guys they've got there in Portland, I just don't know how much you can expect from the Pelicans to really be able to do. Plus, we all understand these guys are going to have to get used to playing together, but more than anything, I think it's a future question that now comes up with the Pelicans, and what can DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis do in the future together? And obviously, so much of this was centered around the contract talks. We all know the way that the money is going in the NBA. Contracts are going to exorbitant numbers. And DeMarcus Cousins, had he stayed with the Kings, would have been in position to have been a $200 million player. Now, I think that's so tough because did the Kings really want to get rid of DeMarcus Cousins? Who knows? There's a lot of kooky things going on down there. But I think more than anything, it's very hard to justify paying a player, even a player as good as he is, $200 million when you're just not winning. I mean, they have not been a winner. They haven't been a winner in a long time, and no matter how good Cousins is, he hasn't been able to help that team win it all. So how do you justify giving a player that much money? Now, New Orleans is in an interesting spot where right now they won't be able to ever give him as much as the Kings could have done. I mean, I'm not the biggest expert on how contracts and things work in the NBA, but from everything that I've read, I just can tell you that they cannot pay him as much as the Kings could have. But I think this is a move where obviously Cousins is in a position where he's talked about it before. He wants to win. He's still going to make an incredible amount of money, but will he be able to win here? Is this thing going to work between him and Anthony Davis? One of the interesting stats that I found was now 2 of the only 3 players in the NBA averaging 25 points and 10-plus rebounds are now on the Pelicans. That's, of course, Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins. And I think there's a lot of people who think that this is a great pairing of these 2 players, and I have a hard time disagreeing with that. I mean, you have Anthony Davis, who I think we all agree is probably the best young player in the league right now, and DeMarcus Cousins, you could knock him for the behavior, you could knock him sometimes for the conduct, but I think it's very hard to knock him for how lethal of a player he is. And obviously the 2 of them, they play a very similar way. Now they think that Anthony Davis is going to be able to be even more versatile and open up his game, because DeMarcus Cousins is going to be able to be much more of that basket presence player, and Davis will be able to move around the floor much more fluidly. But I think you have to look at this again from the perspective of who's in the Western Conference right now? Obviously, it's the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, the San Antonio Spurs aren't going anywhere. The Houston Rockets have been rejuvenated under Mike D'Antoni, and Harden's having his best seasons as a pro. The Clippers are an interesting one. I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about a return perhaps for Chris Paul to make this all kind of work, but I don't know if we could count on any of that happening right now. And I do think beyond that, it's interesting. You have a young Utah team continuing to emerge. Memphis is always a tough one. Oklahoma City, obviously, Russell Westbrook is doing everything he can to hold that team down. And then Denver in the 8th spot, there's really not a ton of things to say about them. But when you try to analyze the future of this team, will it fail or will it succeed? I'm one of those people where I don't think that obviously this team is probably going to win a championship. I just don't. Cousins is one of those older players, and I think I've never really been a guy who's given him a lot of criticism, but I think something has to be said about the fact that, all these other teams could have jumped in for him. Even a team like the Celtics, which I think obviously had so much bargaining power in a move like this. And I know there's some Celtics fans who probably aren't happy about it or probably don't understand it, but that's very telling to me when an organization like that is so close to being in that next caliber, being able to challenge the Cavs, and are so well coached, have so many assets to give up, and even if they did give it up and it didn't work out, it still wouldn't be the end of the world. That's telling to me. And obviously the Pelicans are still a very young organization who haven't really learned to win yet. I don't know if this thing is going to work. I just don't. I think that maybe we will really see if the criticism DeMarcus Cousins had always experienced in Sacramento has been justified all along, or if maybe he has just been held back by an organization which, to be fair, hasn't really had their own end of things figured out. So it has a potential to be very exciting, but I also think it's going to be very, very hard for this team to really win anything. And I think more than anything, I just want to see, is DeMarcus Cousins going to show us who he's always tried to tell us he is, or is it going to be the same player which people have often criticized throughout his career? But until the next time, I'm very curious to see what you think. Will this be a resounding success for DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis with New Orleans, or is this thing just going to come and crash down and not work out? Will DeMarcus Cousins potentially not even be on the Pelicans in a few years' time? He still has that option where if he's not happy there, he always is going to be able to basically become an unrestricted free agent, but we will see. Until the next time, everyone, Jersey Joe Archino here with the Sports Vault. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino, and I'll see everybody in the next episode.